Without any further ado, please give a warm ShmooCon welcome to Sean Gallagher with Bad Romance, the TTPs of pig butchering scammers.
Good morning. I'm Sean Gallagher. I am currently a principal threat researcher at Sophos. This is the last time I was here. I was on stage with fellow journalists. I used to be the IT and National Security Editor at Ars Technica. Most people know me from my bird photos and my cat being on my shoulder. Today I'm here to talk about one of the nastiest forms of cybercrime I've dealt with in my lifetime, known as Shmoocon or pig butchering. It's a pattern of cybercrime that combines all of the worst possible aspects of individually focused internet-enabled scams. Romance scams, crypto rug pulls, you name it, it's all built in there. They've got it. So what is pig butchering? It's a multi-billion-dollar worldwide cybercrime industry. It accounted for $2 billion plus lost in the U.S. In 2022. That was a 183% increase from the year before based on DOJ numbers, and it's even bigger now based on anecdotal data I've had, and I'm still waiting for these crime stats from last year. Primarily, it's run by Chinese organized crime. And when I say Chinese organized crime, we're talking about well-established, long-existing Chinese language organized crime operations, international operations. However, because it has been commoditized to such a great degree, it is now spreading internationally to other crime rings, including Nigerians who are really experienced at doing romance scams, and there's some U.S. criminal involvement. And that's largely through the export of the kits that are used to do these things. Similar to phishing kits, they have packaged the technology to do these scams, and now they're spreading horizontally and globally. It ruins the lives of more than just the victims of the scams. There are people who are trafficked to do these scams by these organized crime operations. It also has impact on people beyond the individual victims in terms of loss. Middle of last year, a bank in Kansas failed because the CEO of the bank was pulled into a crypto scam, and he borrowed $12 million from the bank himself. The FDIC seized the bank. So victims are left penniless and often with debt because they end up taking out loans to try and recover their money because of the sunken cost fallacy. And it can have a lifetime impact. There have also been victims who've committed suicide as a result of the scams. So pig butchering has evolved over the years. It started off in China specifically, primarily as a gambling scam. People would be approached over chat on one of the various Chinese social media platforms and invited to participate in a gambling site, and would be told, oh, I've got inside information on these events, on the things that this gambling is based on, and we can make a lot of money. And when China started cracking down on these operations, they had already metastasized into just crypto scams. When China cracked down on crypto scams, the organized crime operations moved to Myanmar and to Cambodia and to other places in Southeast Asia. They've evolved into other forms. There's this group investment scam where somebody says they're an investment advisor and they're doing a group studying how to invest in this thing, crypto or whatever. Commodity and stock trading, they've actually set up fake commodity exchanges that look like the FTSE or look like the New York Stock Exchange or the Chicago Commodities Exchange. High frequency crypto trading. My aunt told me there's going to be a peak in the value of something, so she should invest now. And then the latest one is DeFi mining. So I'll get into the details of that in a bit. They all follow a common playbook. There's an initial contact. Usually it's either over a dating app or some other social media, or it's via SMS message. How many of you have gotten an SMS message that was an allegedly misaddressed SMS message? Wow, that's what I thought. Yeah, I get 3 or 4 of them a week. They are pig butchering lures. So they register phones through a VoIP service, and they send out masses of SMS messages to lists of numbers. And when somebody engages with them, they then say, oh, meet cute. They talk about how, oh, you're such a nice person, right? And then they ask you if you want to talk on Telegram or on WhatsApp and move it to this secure comms platform for multiple reasons. First of all, it gets out of the carrier's venue. If you're in a dating app, it gets out of moderation and makes sure they have a secure connection to you. And also, that way they can execute the scam more effectively over long term without having to worry about whatever platform they're on. These Telegram and WhatsApp accounts are shared across a bunch of people who keep the thing going, keep the whole scam going. And then they continue to talk you up and act romantic, usually, or like tell a sob story about their lives and how they improve their life through, crypto trading. And then they introduce the scam. They say, okay, this is what I do. I can teach you how to do this. And then they teach you by sending you screenshots of how to use the app with circles and arrows, and then get the person by wearing them down through feeling emotionally connected, and continued contact verifying that they are an actual human being, photos and things like that, romantic talk, finally get the person to invest, and then they have that person continue to invest until they've reached what they are comfortable with, and at that moment they pull the rug, and the exchange, or whatever app says, that you have to pay taxes to get your money back, or you have to pay a fee, or you have to invest in this liquidity event before you can get your money back. And this is where people end up having to go borrow money and getting taken for even more than they have available to them. This is the typical structure of a pig butchering organization. So it's divided between front office and back office. The front office is the scam operation. It's the people who are on the keyboards, on the phones. Generally speaking, in the groups I've encountered, they have one live person who's generally an attractive male or female who will do video calls, will do voice calls on the platform, on the communications platform that they're using. Or they may have a collection of images that they have somebody just basically collecting and running and trying to make it look as live as possible. And then there are keyboarders. Those are people who keep the chat up 24/7 and will keep the victim going, and every now and then they'll schedule a call with the face of the scam. And that's all shared over, they all do that over shared chat accounts. The back office is where all of the bad stuff happens with the actual crypto. The money laundering, there's an IT team that develops the apps, gathers social media content to use to build profiles, builds or hacks profiles on different social media platforms, develops the crypto contracts, the smart contracts that are used to move money, and pushes money into bank accounts that are controlled by the scammers. Most of the back offices are in, some of the back offices I've encountered are actually in Hong Kong, though they're spread geographically. There have been recent arrests made in the U.S., charged in the U.S., of people who were involved in back office operations for big butchering operations overseas. And this is because the organizations running these are multinational organizations, and they spread their risk. They usually use shell companies to handle the actual money laundering, so it's very difficult to trace things back to who was originally involved. This has become such a big deal in China, there's actually an action movie out about pig butchering. It's called No More Bets. It was released last year. It's a film about a gang running one of the earliest versions of the scam, an alleged gambling scam. Of course, because it has to meet Chinese Communist Party film standards, the bad guys get caught. So it's not like the real thing. Victimology. So most of the people who I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of people, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, when I got research put out, people started reaching out to me directly to tell me about what happened to them in hopes that I could help them. Most recently, I had we're going to go into details on one of these victims. As a retired federal employee who lost $20,000 or more as a result of the scam. This was a DeFi scam, which I will give details in a bit. I've talked to victims who have lost as much as $500,000. The outlier was there was a young woman who was a university student in Poland who lost $1,000, and the reason she only lost $1,000 is that's all she had to put into the scam before they cut her loose. Ages tend to skew older, tend to be male, because those are people who are on dating apps, who recently divorced people. Some of the victims are people who have been isolated because of medical reasons and are looking for friends. They accepted friend requests too easily on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. There was one victim who had an Airbnb and was approached by someone who said they were going to rent for them for their Airbnb. And instead, the person eventually said, hey, I'd like to pay you through crypto, but also I have this great way to make money through crypto. Would you like to get involved? And that person lost about $25,000. They do a lot of work on persona building. Right? So the images here, I first have to give a proviso. These are images of people who, these images may or may not be of people who are actually involved in the scam. Right? The image to the left is likely someone who is involved involuntarily. The image to the right I have found so many places. I think it was stolen from a Korean social media account. In either case, these were both sent to me by a recent lure. Just last week I got these images. I did a quick search, and both of them had multiple LinkedIn accounts associated with the same image. Most of these LinkedIn accounts were as old as 2014, and suddenly about a year ago, the contact information changed on them, and then within the last 6 months, the image changed. They were all very consistent. So these were all either aged accounts that somebody had set up, or more likely they were compromised LinkedIn accounts that were taken over through credential stuffing and sold to scammers. This is the image search on one of those. There were like 20, 30 different LinkedIn accounts associated with this image. I've seen the same phenomenon on Facebook as well. There have been compromised accounts that were maintained and flipped for the scammers on Facebook, and I've been approached by multiple accounts on Facebook. Even though I have security researcher in my bio, I get Facebook messages, and they're like, wow, you want to engage with you? Hey, you seem like a cool person. I want to be your friend. Oh, and there's also like this thing I do to make money. A lot of people don't know how to or care to recover lost accounts on Facebook or LinkedIn, so there's not a lot of pressure on LinkedIn or Facebook to do anything about these accounts. And when you report these accounts to Facebook, generally they say, oh, that's a real person. The algorithm says it's a real person. And that's because they've gone back and they've edited all the posts going back 10 years to make it look like they had a history associated with the account. And so the algorithm fails every time on them. One of the things we've been seeing happen is the use of generative AI. So there are a couple examples here of messages that were sent to victims or to targets that were generated by ChatGPT or another generative AI. And then off to the right here is an image, thanks to Michael Graven of Palo Alto Networks, Unit 42, for passing me this one, of an AI-created image of a person that was used as a lure. There's the image on the bottom left is an introductory chat message I got via Facebook Messenger, which essentially they fed in my bio from Facebook and generated a message to send to me. And it was super bizarre. I saw I was a vet, as a veteran, and they assumed that meant I was an animal doctor. One scammer sent me a white paper for their scam that was entirely generated by AI. let's talk a little bit about their infrastructure. So the photo on the left is a pig butchering operations center. Every single one of those computers has a person associated with them who's keyboarding all day long. And on to the right, you can see what's in front of them generally, which is a whole bunch of phones and a keyboard. And there's a group chat on there telling them, reminding them what they're supposed to do. This is their office infrastructure. Now, the rest of their infrastructure, the devices that they use are usually registered with either a pay-as-you-go or a prepaid wireless program or through a voice-over IP service provider. Cinch, bandwidth.com, freeconferencecalls.com, all these services are getting abused by these scammers to do SMS messaging and to register their WhatsApp and Telegram accounts. And for their application infrastructure, they're using, well, obviously using, I didn't say Cloudflare, and to protect their location, but they are using hosting on AWS very openly through resellers. AWS has been really good about trying to take down this stuff when I tell them about it. Alibaba, less reactive, obviously. Other Chinese hosting companies are their primary hosting operations, but then they put it behind Cloudflare, and so the customer, the target can't tell where they're coming from if they're that tech savvy to look for that. They tend to use things like internally, Telegram, Line. I found one group was using Line for internal communications because I sent a canary link to one of the scammers, and I saw it get passed, or I saw the link get hit from different Line accounts through Line's data centers that was getting preloaded for them. They also have infrastructure built to do the crypto moving, so there are crypto wallets that are compromised that are used. There are crypto nodes that are set up that are used to move, they have smart contracts to move crypto when it's moved out of somebody's wallet, and so on. The domains, the domains. So they try to follow a pattern that looks like crypto brand names when they set up domains, and they like to use weird TLDs. Although they frequently use .com and .net, they are using, and occasionally .org, they are using .top, .xyz, .life, .shop, .whatever. They're a mashup of brands and of terms, and often they are numerically incremented because they will use the same pattern over and over again, but they'll increment it with a number or a series of letters to differentiate from previous ones. It's really easy to pivot on these. So once you get one, once you do look at the site, and I'll talk about this a little later, you find hundreds of them in just a matter of seconds, because they all are using same sorts of code, they all have the same signatures. Just having to search for a single JavaScript file that's been indexed, you can immediately discover 400 or 500 additional domains that are associated with this. So one of the first versions of this that we encountered, and I should say that the reason we encountered these things at Sophos originally was because of the fake mobile applications that were associated with them. And we were doing mobile security. And one of the things we found was that customers were getting weird profiles installed on their iOS devices, or they were getting unknown Android applications installed on their iOS devices. And the Android applications were essentially front ends for websites. And the iOS profiles were just loading web tiles onto people's phones. These were intended to look like exchanges, and they were convincing enough for people. They're built with React and a bunch of other JavaScript. They looked enough like an actual exchange to the victims, who are not necessarily crypto savvy, that they were convinced by them. This type of technology was used by one of the first scams I dove into, which I dubbed Vancouver grapes, and I'll explain that in a moment. So this is an actual scam I engaged with. They sent me an SMS message. I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and engage with this victim. And this started in October of 2022. I kept it going until about February of 2023. The con angle was it was a fake crypto market. I geolocated the scammers to one of the hotbeds of pig butchering, Sihanoukville in Cambodia. There's a bunch of hotels that were built with money from Belt and Road and other loans from China that were suffering because of COVID. They didn't have enough tourists coming in, and so the organized crime people came in and said, "Hey, we have a way to make you make a profit," and they've also paid off local law enforcement. This scam, the woman claimed to be living in Vancouver, just the Vancouver, and she claimed to be in the wine business. And she told me she had to go to her grape factory. So that's why Vancouver grapes. She told me that her aunt had taught her how to do high-frequency crypto trading because she had a horrible marriage, and she caught her husband cheating, and she was depressed, and she was losing money in her business, and she was going to have to lay people off, but her aunt taught her how to do crypto trading, and that helped her get through COVID and save her business, and she wanted to share what she learned with me. And to get involved, I needed to put money sending money to a wallet address to activate my account. And an iOS web tile was deployed to my test device via a mobile profile. Here's a little bit of the dialogue. So this person was very much involved in the scam operation. I don't know if it was through coercion or voluntary. I'm assuming that at a certain point it became voluntary because the people who are the front people get paid better. But these are very coercive operations, so I cannot say that this person is necessarily a criminal, or may very well be a victim. So just that on the image, I mean, can't guarantee this person is not in a dangerous situation. So as you can see from on the left, this is the original message stream that I got. She sent this photo. What she said was was part of her wine store in Vancouver. I did a little bit of OSINT and discovered that was a bar in a hotel in Phnom Penh. Then she showed this, and I said, weird, you're a wine store, but you have all this whiskey in your bar. And then she showed this cabinet of alcohol. All of it had Chinese labels on it. And this is the fake web app that they were using. It was squatting on TradingView, which is a trading application, a legitimate trading application. It was squatting on a lookalike domain. This has been shut down. But I pivoted off of that following the installation process that I was sent, and I found over 500 domains that were dropping the same iOS web clip or an APK version of the same application. And they were using a variety of different crypto brand names. So another way they started to do these things that's a little even more convincing than the Android app. On iOS, they started doing, they had to social engineer people into this. So they were doing actual iOS apps, and they were using test flight as a way to deploy them, saying this is a really select group of people who get to use this app. And so it's still in beta, but we're letting you join us to do this app. And so they develop the app, they submit it through a service provider. There are a bunch of these in China because there are a lot of people who use jailbroken iOS devices. and don't want to use the App Store because the Chinese government strictly controls the App Store. They use test flight to deploy them. There is very little review of test flight applications by Apple. The scammer then directs the victim over chat to a fake web page that it looks like an app store to download the app, and then they talk them through installing the profile information required to install test flight and get the app installed. A lot of social engineering, a lot of hurdles to clear, but they can be very convincing to people, especially people who are just basic iOS users. The next thing we found is they were using super signature and enterprise deployment. So the test flight thing, Apple started cracking down on test flight a little bit. And then they moved to actually using using a middleman who actually ran sort of an enterprise deployment license for them to send these apps out to people through an enterprise profile. So again, you're not only giving the scammer the ability to install an app on your device, you're also giving them a lot of control over your mobile device by installing these profiles, because it's the same mobile device management profile you would deploy for a managed device in a corporation. The next way they moved was to, okay, we'll use real apps and do the same thing. So this brings us to, this particular app is MetaTrader 4. MetaTrader 4 and 5 are being widely used for these scams. MetaTrader is a trading app that was developed by a Russian-owned Cypriot company, and is used in commodity trading and in other investment overseas, but because there are sanctions on Russian software, it's not allowed to be used in the U.S. So it's a legitimate application. The issue is that the configuration for that application can be changed as part of the deployment package, and you can have it point at a server, whatever server you want to. And they modify the configuration data to point at a hostile MetaTrader server, usually running on Chinese infrastructure. And you've got to go through this is a side load, so again, it was depending upon a mobile device profile, and the scammers talk you through that. That application was used in this scam I called Fool's Gold. This was a contact through Twitter DM. The woman involved in this case, I geolocated the whole scam to Hong Kong. They were using MetaTrader and a fake bank website that squatted on the IP of Mabuki Limited, a Chinese banking company, to convince people that they were actually allowing people to do commodity trading through this Japanese banking operation. You had to put money in through wire transfer. They were using Enterprise MDM to deploy the application, and the woman who was the front for it told me that her Uncle Richard used to work for Goldman Sachs and knew all about how the gold market worked, and he could help me make a lot of money on the gold market. And so a secondary Telegram account got involved, which was supposed to be Uncle Richard. Uncle Richard accidentally texted me in Mandarin a few times. So you just have to ask the right questions, and sometimes you catch them off guard. The more they've been getting better. So the more troublesome bit of what's been going on with some of these apps is that they have figured out how to slide past App Store review with real apps, and they change the content of the app. So they'll put an app in for review, and it's got some name like Mom's Club. It's like a Mom's Savings Club thing, and it's supposed to be like it has an interface that looks like it's involved in like coupon clipping or something. And after it gets submitted and it gets approved, they change the source of the HTML that gets loaded as the page interface. And it changes the entire appearance of the application, its behavior, and it becomes a crypto trading app. So here are two examples that we found that they were in the iOS, in the App Store. And great names, right? These were running off of the same web server. They were using the same web server as a source of the interface. And as you can, here's a shot of the capture from what the application was doing. So it was making a request to a JSON request to this domain rest.apizza.net. And what they did is that was retrieving an interface location, and after it got through review, they changed it to this, what was returned to this berry.top.h1 / URL. And that actually changed the entire into all the characteristics of the actual application. They also mass deploy these and others. So we found a bunch of apps, and they all had the same description with only one word change in them. So hats off to Apple for what they usually do in app review, but they're being overwhelmed by the number of these applications that are getting deployed. There's a minimum amount of review that can be done to determine whether they're legitimate or not, and they're happening in markets where I think Apple has a little bit less attention to what goes on. When we report these, Apple takes them down. Same with Google. We report the apps to Google, it comes out of the Play Store almost right away. So the last evolution we've seen is, well, if we can't use our own apps, we'll use somebody else's. And that's where this DeFi stuff comes to mind, decentralized finance. So we saw this start first as called liquidity mining scams. They were sort of group scams, and then it evolved more into a pig butchering driven romance scam. What they do is they get the victim to install a trusted crypto wallet application onto their phone and put money into the crypto wallet through a crypto exchange. Then they have them load a URL in the web browser built into the crypto wallet. That application has in it a link to a smart contract that then gives the attackers unlimited access to the funds in that wallet. So they're able to withdraw all of the contents from that wallet. The screenshot to the very far right is a Telegram group chat that was associated with one of the original liquidity mining scams that I saw. And people get directed this by DM groups and Twitter and other places. The middle two screenshots are of fake apps that run within the context of a crypto wallet. So liquidity mining is a real thing, but this is not a real thing. So this is how these scams operate. The victim is often given crypto initially, Ethereum specifically, to pay for the crypto contract to be created and put on the blockchain. A control node that gets formed is created by committing the contract and joining the mining pool. That control node then allows money to be dropped into their wallet to make it look like they're actually making a profit. And at a certain point, it yanks it all and moves it to another wallet. This is the scheme. This is the flow for this scam I was talking about earlier. The victim, who's local here, money was withdrawn to an intermediate wallet, which had then moved it to a compromised Binance wallet. It was a wallet associated with originally associated with somebody in EMEA, actually in Turkey. And then that Binance wallet then cashed out the tether that was taken, the USDT that was taken, through Binance to a bank in Hong Kong. This is, going back to Fool's Gold for a minute, I just moved this slide to the wrong place. So this is the back in that original app, the Mabuki Limited scam, the MetaTrader app, I looked at their infrastructure, and as you can see, this is they were using Hong Kong-based IT to run the whole scheme, and then using an account with a Hong Kong bank for the wire transfers. So this is what happened with our victim that was local. They convinced him to download Trust Wallet and these are actually screenshots from the scammer to the victim. Go to Trust Wallet, go to the browser, load up this page, and join. And then the last screenshot to the far right is of his chat with the tech support for what he thought was Trust Wallet, but was actually it was a chat app within the website running in the context of the wallet that was run by the scammers, and they told him, oh, his money has been moved into this special event, and in order to get his money back, he needs to deposit another $250,000. So normally liquidity mining, which is kind of sketchy to begin with, the idea is it's sort of like a money market account with a brokerage. Except it's all automated. So you have a group of people who contribute sets of coin of tokens to a pool. There's an automated market maker that handles trades, and the members of the pool get paid a fee for every transaction they make happen, because they're basically offering a short-term loan to make the transactions go through. And these exchanges often have something called staking, where they give you an opportunity to permanently contribute to the pool, and you get a token that represents that investment, which can be traded like another cryptocurrency. That doesn't happen in any of the scams, but all of these are subject to possible rug pulls. I mean, by rug pull, I mean whoever runs this DeFi network could at any point decide, well, I'm just going to take all the money in everybody's wallets and go, and that has happened a number of times. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our local victim, who we called Frank in the report we did, which was to protect his identity. He was hit by this scammer who, they were talking, the domain he was directed to was an allnodes directory, allnodes.vip. He was approached by a scammer who through an app called Meet Me, which is a dating app, and the scammer claimed to be from Germany but living in DC, wanted to get together, was never physically available to actually meet up though, and I have to go to Cleveland now for a few days, and I got to go back to Germany, but I really want to meet you, and I really want to, so I should find a way for you to make enough money to come visit me in Germany. So Frank got taken for $20,000. I tracked his wallet, the transactions from his wallet, and I found that it was associated with this one particular node, one just above the bottom one. This was the contract wallet that was attached to his. And it was moving his money to multiple different wallets. But then I started tracing back, and I found that there was another node associated with another domain that was called allnodes that was doing the same thing and sending things to the same wallets. I expanded my search looking for other domains that were running the same kit as this domain, and I found two other groups of domains that were using separate contract wallets. And found they also had additional contract wallets associated with where their destinations were that were with other scams I had not found. In total, I found about 100 victims and total losses of close to $2 million. So and these are the numbers here are things that are associated specifically with the victims and the sites I could identify. This group I labeled as the ADA scam group because all of their domains started with ADA except for one. They used a single laundering wallet. They had two different contracts associated with them. And they took 35 victims for $310,000. This is all over a course of 3 months. 3 months. The Trust Scam Group, another group, had more domains. Again, they were using trust in the name of most of the domains, like Trust Wallet. And they had 5 sites. They had 47 victims and $781,000 of total lost funds. They were using 3 laundering wallets and 3 different contracts. All these ended up going basically the same place in the end. And then there was the All Nodes group, which I mentioned. 2 different sites, 28 victims, operated the shortest of all of them, but still $353,000 US in total lost funds. Some of these groups are still active. The wallets are still active. I can still see the contracts going through. I just gave up on tracking them because I was doing this all on a spreadsheet, and I don't have a license for chain analysis, so it got interesting. But pivoting off of these things, I could continually find more scams. So let's talk a little bit how you hunt these things. I've been just using a DNS gotcha. I'll go in and type in trust-bitcoin.whatever, and bang, I have a fake domain, and it's running a scam. It's really that easy. I've been relying heavily on urlscan.io to pivot off of those to find other domains with the same kits. Once I've verified that they are scam sites, then I collect the wallet or contract addresses that are associated with them, if I can, and I report them, and then I start over again. One of the things I'm working on right now is there is a machine learning tool that was developed a few years back to go after phishing sites by you doing machine learning determination of whether this is a domain squatter or a phishing site or whatever. I used it during COVID to find bad COVID-related sites, and I'm working on applying it to the crypto domain to find more of these scam sites. That's future work. The problem with analysis on this, they're getting smarter about OPSEC. So when they first started doing this stuff, you could get in, get the wallet address, get out, and you could not shut them down really quickly. Now they're requiring invite codes. They're using VPNs to protect their location. They're using anti-analysis code in their websites so that you have to have money in your wallet in order to see content of the site. So it's getting harder to harvest data from them. So, ways you can help. Tell people about this shit, pardon my language. Tell people about these scams. Educate, especially elders, about these scams. Tell them not to reply to text messages from somebody who they don't know. Just don't engage. Report lures you get to the carriers. I use a website called freecarrierlookup.com. Every text message I get that's from somebody I don't know, I put it in freecarrierlookup.com, and if it's a bandwidth.com or a cinch or any of those other things, I report it immediately through their abuse interface. There are 2 organizations helping victims that I've encountered. One we're working with, a U.S. group called the Cybercrime Support Network, and it's funded by FINRA. Another that's an international organization called the Global Anti-Scam Organization. They are now a 503c charity in the U.S., so you can donate money to them and write off your taxes. They provide a lot of educational material for people who are potential victims, and Cybercrime Support Network offers counseling to victims. They have discovered that people who are hit by romance scams like these tend to be hit again because they go back out and look for connections with other people to cry about what happened to them, to get solace for what happened to them. They need new friends, and the new friends are other scammers. It's a repeating problem. The victim I dealt with locally, he had already been the victim of 2 romance scams before he got hit by the pig butchering scam. Also, don't poke the bear. So I got a little bit cocky. I got a text message, and I immediately recognized it as a pig butchering scam. And I said, hey, yeah, so, wow, you're not using bandwidth.com anymore. Well, that's cool. You guys should just buy your own phone company. I'm going to report this number to law enforcement. And I sent a link to the Wall Street Journal story about the Chinese crackdown on pig butchering to them. And they responded immediately, I hope you won't regret this. And then he said, I'd hate for my wife's name to regret what you're doing. So what they had basically done is they Googled my phone number, and I had to delete some stuff from various public databases that were the people finders, which I started to do after a victim found me through Been Verified. I did route this to the FBI, but then they texted my address to me, right? So, whee, great. So, the organizations that run these things, they are hardcore, right? So there is concern for physical security for researchers working in this area, because these are organized crime operations that often engage in things like organ harvesting overseas and other things. So with that, I'm ready for questions. We've got 5 minutes left for questions. Please go to the microphones, and I thank you for your time. And these are places you can find me, and fallinganvil.com is a domain I operate that has all my contact information on it. Also has the cyber threaterator, which will generate threat names for you. Thank you.
I'm just curious. Hold on, let me make that a little easier for people to understand me. Hello.
Hello.
I'm not bragging that I'm a gay man, but I've never fallen for a romance scam because they never come after me with anything I'd be interested in. Have you ever had anybody get a gay male get a romance scam?
Yes, we've had, and some of the victims that I've talked to are gay men who engaged in dating sites and were approached by fake gay men.
Okay.
They don't care. They don't care. In fact, that's one of the things that they go after, is because especially if it's, so the victim I dealt with who was gay was not out to friends. And so he was very embarrassed about what was going on. He couldn't like talk to people about what had happened to him. So, next question.
Hey, Sean, why is it called pig butchering?
Why is it called pig butchering is a question. So, pig butchering comes from the Chinese term ShmooCon, which is pig butchering plate. It's actually a part of, it's the name for one of the roles involved in this type of scam, but it's become popularized as the term for it in research areas. The other term that's used for the initial role in these scams is dog walking. So first you dog walk, first you take the victim and walk them along into the scheme, and then the pig butchering part is fattening up the victim's wallet and then slaughtering.
Um,
Oh, over there. Sorry.
Yeah. Back in 2022, I got to play around with the whole DeFi world, or 2021, and I've seen that Solana is getting really popular, and so I was like, oh, let's see what this is. And now all the DeFi says, you're in the US, you can't use this anymore. I don't know what laws are on the books, but when people do these kinds of scams, like as an American, are they then gonna be liable to some sort of law breaking in that regard?
No, and part of the reason is that they don't actually use those platforms themselves for this. They are using fake versions of them.
Right.
So, one of the triggers for me on the gold trading thing was, oh yes, the app you need to use is, the company is sanctioned, so you can't use it in the US, but we're gonna sideload it for you. I mean, that was a key red flag right there. For most people, I would think that'd be a red flag for most people. But the crypto apps, they do, all the stuff they do to avoid know your customer and all that is on the back end.
Okay.
So the victims who are registering in these fake DeFi networks, they are just moving crypto from an exchange to a wallet. And then once they connect their wallet, the contract is run elsewhere. They don't have any association with it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, I was just wondering, what is the level of cooperation between U.S. law enforcement and the foreign law enforcement in catching these bad guys?
Well, U.S. law enforcement and many other countries' law enforcement, there is some coordination, but since most of these operations cash out in China, there is zero collaboration right now because of the fact that China has stopped collaboration on cybercrime.
You had a slide that said acquire a phone through PPW. What's that? The regionally appropriate phone?
Can you repeat that?
There was a slide that said they acquire regionally appropriate phones from PPW.
Yeah, so they will pay prepaid wireless. Prepaid wireless. So some of the scammers that I've interacted with, the initial contact was over phones that were. Oh, I'm hitting my time. Happy to take your questions off stage. But thank you again for your attendance. Hope the rest of the day is great. Thanks for coming to ShmooCon.